Welcome back to the podcast, guys. This is number 7. Chris, what's up?
Not a lot. I am just waiting for spring. How about
Me
you?
too. Well, it's 68 degrees here today, so it actually did feel like spring.
Wow. Wow.
And also, I want to mention this. I didn't tell you that we're going to talk about this, but after work, I went to Dick's Sporting Goods,
Oh, what'd you
right?
get?
I was looking for boots,
Okay.
right? Because I didn't find any at the Great American Outdoor Show. So I decided I'm going to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, 2 minutes from my house. I go in there and I just said, hey, I want to walk over to the hunting section, right? You've been in the Dick's Sporting Goods, right?
Yeah.
You've seen the hunting section.
Yep.
They have a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I go over there. I hear all this banging, right? All this banging, and I walk over. The entire hunting lodge area is empty. They removed
What?
all their hunting stuff, the guns, canoes, fishing. I asked the kid. He was over there sweating, taking all the shelf down. I said, "What's going on?"
Just remodeling, I hope.
He's like, "Ah, these freaking people, bunch of liberals." He's like, "They're taking all the guns out, and they're
Oh.
out of all the Dick's Sporting Goods." And he said he was fed up with it, and he put his 2 weeks in. He's leaving.
Oh wow.
He said they're gutting all the entire canoes. They're the
Canoes
fish
even.
canoes, fishing lures, the rods, the guns, ammo, all the hunting stuff they used to sell, the
Gone.
clothing, gone, 100% gone.
Oh my.
Can you believe that?
No, I can't. I mean, like I've heard at the one Dick's I know at down the Mills Mall in Pittsburgh, they were talking about removing guns out of there.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've done that yet.
I saw it on Facebook maybe a year or 2 ago. They were talking about removing guns, but
Yeah.
then like, all the Dick's Sporting Goods I've been to still had them,
Hmm.
and now all
Yeah.
of a sudden I go in there today and it's 100% gone, and the guys in there,
Wow.
you could tell they were just, like, aggravated, and the one kid I talked to, he like you said, he's like, "I put my 2 weeks in." He said, "I can't take his place
Well,
anymore."
there you go, folks. Go go buy your stuff at the Tractor Supply or a Rural King or a
Mhm.
Dunham's or something like that.
Yeah.
Don't support people like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
You know,
weird. Whatever. So,
crazy, crazy.
what do you get me fired up about today? What are we talking
Oh
about?
man.
What can we provide to the
Okay.
audience today?
Well, someone I just watched a video someone put out,
Okay.
and this guy was fired up. You
Mhm.
want to know what it is?
Man, what do you got?
About people making food plotting way too much harder than it needs to be and too scientific. You know anything about this?
What guy are you referring to? I'm very curious.
This dude named Dave Richmond. You know,
Alright.
this dude's a nut. I watched him.
Yeah.
He just blah 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 for 10 minutes. I couldn't handle
Yeah. At least I got to trip you at the Great American Outdoor Show.
it. so the so the video so the video. What was you trying to say?
So look, it's getting that time of year where everybody's starting to think about food plots.
Yes.
And around this same time every year, I start getting questions on Instagram. For some reason, people don't want to comment on YouTube. They'll send me a private message on Instagram, which is fine. But they'll say, "Hey, we're going into spring. I want to frost seed. I want to plant this. I want to plant that. What do you think about this domain product? What do you think about this? How do you think about this person's method?" Right? I'm like, okay, well, I can give you some advice on what to plant, when to plant, and the general idea of how to plant it. But as far as what this person is talking about, I can't help you. Ask them, right? And a lot of times when you get into the summer, I get more questions. Hey, Dave, I followed this person's advice on their planting method. It failed. What do I do? And they're talking to me as if it's the normal way of planting, right?
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I'm very sorry that your food plot failed. Okay, I'm very sorry it failed. You lost money. But as far as why it failed, I can't help you. Ask that person, and they say, "Oh well, I did ask them, but they didn't get back to me. They won't answer my question." I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you because I don't do it that way."
See, here's my opinion. You've got some of these big name brand YouTubers or celebrities, whatever you want to call them, and they do something in a certain method, and they show some plot that looks decent, and so someone says, "Hey, I want to do that," but
Yes.
the methods that they're using, the people got to realize out there, they're being paid to say and do this stuff.
Yeah.
They have sponsors, okay, and they have to fulfill their sponsorships,
Mhm.
and they're going to use this piece of machinery or this method to justify what some company gave them to use.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the part that fires me up because you're not getting the full story.
Well, most of this stuff, these new planting methods, I'm old school when it comes. I follow what a farmer does, what my grandparents used to do when they used to plant garden. You dig a freaking hole or expose the soil, you put a seed in it, you get a watering can, you water it. As food plots go, we would have, Mother Nature rainfall, but it just grows. I can't
Yeah,
explain it. You just throw the seed out and it just grows. So when you get these new methods that people are talking about, such as like the rolling and then the actual crimping,
right.
it just throws a wrench into the mix and it confuses people
Well, there there is a way and a method to doing that stuff, and you have to hit it right. It's called the dough stage.
with the
You
crimping.
can't
Yeah,
Yeah, you can't terminate something if it's not in that dough stage.
yeah.
And what I mean by that is you can take the kernels off the top of something, you can squeeze it between your fingers, and if like a milky residue comes out of it, or if it's real soft and mushy, that's the
Hmm.
milk stage. If you're not in that stage, if it's already hard, you're too late. It's already
Well,
gone to seed and it's going to regerminate.
well, the whole idea with the crimping is to eliminate the use of chemicals because you're
Yes.
you're killing it by rolling and
And the
bending.
yes, and the idea is to terminate it, but
Yes.
people don't do it at the right point in time.
How can you do it when you're 4 hours away? Were you supposed to magically,
Yeah.
figure out when the plant's in a dough
Well,
stage?
that's why it's a bad method to use. You shouldn't get into something that's over your head, you
Well,
know.
we don't wanna say it's a bad method because it does work.
Oh,
It
you
it
can make it work.
You can
Yeah.
make it work, but it as a deer hunter, as a food plotter, we don't have time to worry about what's going on 4 hours away
Right.
just to drive there to crimp something, and
Right.
what farmer has time to do that?
Correct.
Because a farmer has hundreds, if not thousands of acres to plant. Do
Mhm.
you think he's gonna a farmer's busy, dude. Like he wakes up and it's dark. He's on the tractor working, he's doing something around the house. He don't have time to worry about when a cover crop such as wheat and rye is in the dough stage to go around and crimp it,
Right.
let alone
Yeah.
a food plotter or a typical deer hunter that works 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But if
Okay.
you're but if you're going to plant that type of crop and you plan on crimping or rolling and spraying or terminating with a crimper,
Hmm.
you had better keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Because if you do it too early, it's just going to pop up and grow again.
Yeah.
If you do it too late, now you've got hundreds and hundreds of seeds falling on this little, every little area.
Hmm.
You've got millions and millions and millions of seeds trying to fall, and it's just going to smother itself out,
Yeah.
and it's going to be just like having weeds,
Right.
it's just going to come up way too thick, and it's not what you want. I mean,
Well,
you've
it's
got to hit it just right.
yeah, with the crimping, yes. Two things. One is obviously the rolling and the crimping is kind of like a new trend. The reason it's a trend and people are doing it is because whatever reason it is, but companies are jumping on that bandwagon because now you're starting to see smaller ATV equipment being turned into a crimper
Right.
because they know it's a money making thing because it's a trend right now. It's a
Mm-hmm.
trend. The other thing is this rolling of the buckwheat. It's a method, doesn't require tilling or anything, but you have to roll it. You have to spray it with chemical to kill it. But this is one of the biggest fails from people that I'm getting questions about is most likely what's happening is they're putting too much seed per acre, and when they broadcast into that and then roll it, it's it's too thick and it can't germinate because
Yeah,
they send me photos of what they're doing and it's just weak tonnage. There's no growth coming up through. Everything's stunted,
heavy matting.
heavy matting
Yeah,
exactly.
gotcha.
It's just it's making people fail. And
Yeah.
like I said in the video that I posted today, I feel bad for like new food plotters coming into this time of food plotting and deer hunting because they are just lost.
Well, I've tried the buckwheat thing here at the house before. You know that, and I don't I don't do the rolling thing, and I don't do the crimping thing. What I did is a throw and mow. I went in and put my seed bag up as high as I could and got it over top of the buckwheat, and I seeded into the buckwheat, and then I went in with the brush hog and mowed. Took
Hmm.
took a couple feet off of it
Hmm.
and just let it, I don't know, what do you want to say? Throw it all over the place
Yeah.
like a
Well,
mulch, you
you're
know.
adding, yeah, that would be no different than if you're like broadcasting into like standing beans and then the leaves turn yellow and fall off. And
Yeah, it's kind of like a mulch, you know.
yeah, did you have
But it
did it
provides enough protection that the birds aren't in there picking up all your seed.
did you have good germination and tonnage and all that?
It wasn't bad, yeah. It
Yeah.
worked. It worked
Yeah.
okay, you know,
Yep.
because I only had it was a straight stand of buckwheat, so there was dirt underneath, you
Hmm.
know. So
And it
it got
wasn't too
good.
thick.
Yeah, and it got good soil to seed contact, and then like I said, that residue kind of just fell over top and kind of made a mulch, but like encased it a little bit. So, like I said, so the critters weren't in there picking up all the seeds
Yeah.
because the birds will rob you.
Yeah. Well, like no till n- a no till drill, that could be beneficial, in certain time. All this could be beneficial in certain times.
Right.
Each planning method has a time and place, such as say super, super rocky areas. You can't really dish the ground, but majority of food plotters aren't planting in that type of condition. So traditionally, I mean, even when you disc, like even myself, I don't go that deep. I only go a couple inches. You don't
Yeah. It's,
have to go very deep at all.
yeah.
Even I was talking to a guy today on Facebook. You can plant just by taking that chain. What was that chain we bought or we borrowed from your buddy?
Oh yeah, the
The
chain drag harrow.
Yeah, the chain drag harrow from Tractor. I ended up buying one, but you can plant just by scratching the surface with that thing
Yeah,
and
for
just
sure.
throwing the seed out and letting Mother Nature do what it does.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah, that's preferred. I mean, I unless the only way I would disagree with you about that would be is if you knew that you had highly compacted ground.
Well, yeah, like I said,
Then
there's
you
a time and
then you
place for
need to
everything.
then you need to bust it up.
Yeah.
Get the cultivators out and rip
Hmm.
it up a little bit,
Yeah.
disc it down,
Yeah. Like
but
we had to do at your mother-in-law's.
yeah,
That ground was very compacted from
very compacted.
years
Yeah.
of tractor
20
use.
20 years of tractor use, cows and Belgium horses. Those are
Hmm.
things are huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're talking compaction big time.
Hmm.
I just tore it up with
Yeah.
cultivators.
It's not
Got
compacted
got
anymore.
got new. I got them down there like 8 inches,
Hmm.
and now I just go in and disc lightly, and you know it's good to go.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing a lot of like with the no-till stuff, the rolling and all this, is you get so much layers of on top, it kind of like smothers out stuff, and you're not getting. And also, when you do that, yes, people are talking about all this like the shade barrier, protection from the sun, but
Yeah,
then
it's
they're
cooler underneath.
cooler underneath. But when you have that cool, damp environment, it allows a lot of fungus and
Yeah,
stuff to grow. I'm
yeah.
seeing, and you get like
Get a fungus or you get a
algae
moss.
and
Yeah,
moss,
algae,
and
moss.
I mean you
You
got to
know.
have sun hitting that, and
Yeah.
it's creating other problems. And didn't me
Well,
and you watch a video from the YouTube channel? I think it was Ag PhD, where they had the pros and cons of no-till.
I'm
Was it?
pretty sure because
Uh,
I subscribe to them anyhow, so I watch
yeah,
all their stuff.
and they had a good video on there. If you guys are
Yep.
listening, search Ag PhD on YouTube,
Yeah, the
and
Hefty brothers.
yes, and type in like a no-till Ag PhD or something. It's a very good video. It was a couple years ago, but it's a very good video, and those guys produce pretty good
Right.
content. But
Now here's another thing. Um,
you
I
don't
was
have no
think
thing.
I was thinking about this while I was welding at work.
Hmm.
The people that are beating us up for tilling the ground and exposing the dirt. Um, think about this: if they are trying to frost seed, also,
Hmm.
first of all, they're probably going to have all that thatch, and that it's
Hmm.
going to have limited germination. But
Hmm.
I'm thinking, you know, if you've got ground that is exposed and you need seeds to germinate around 50-degree soil or so, that dirt is exposed is getting the rays from the sun and warming up that soil earlier in the spring, so you're going to get faster germination after you frost seed.
Hmm.
And I was just throwing that out there,
Yeah, yeah, it
because
could be a
they're
possibility too.
they're so heavy, hot and heavy on this, like you were just saying about there's being thatch over it and it keeping the soil cooler and it's not burning up your seed. I can see that, like if you're in Florida or Texas or something, you could burn up some plots probably, but
Dude, I'm telling you, up when this food plot world is so mixed up with people, all these different types of methods, people are lost, man. I mean,
oh
people ask these questions and it's like,
yeah,
hey, so and so said this, so and so
right.
said this, and I'm seeing a rapid amount of people fail at food plots when
Well,
it's so simple.
how about this one? How about the people that are attacking you after you disc,
Hmm.
and they're saying, "Oh, you destroyed the biome and all the
Hmm.
natural, nutrients and all the what's the word I'm looking for? All the little critters in the dirt." I can't think of right now.
Worms.
Yeah, everything. It's in the all the living organisms. That's the word I want. All you killed all of them because you tilled and you killed it. All your dirt's dead now. Well,
Okay. Well, let
okay. Well, what are they doing with all the chemicals they're spraying?
yeah, I was about to say that. You're
Okay.
spraying all the chemicals, they're killing live microorganisms and all that.
Yeah. What's that doing to them?
What's
You
that
know?
doing to the worms and the insects and all that?
Oh, but it neutralizes when it hits the dirt. Well, why are you using it then? If it's neutralizing as soon as it hits the dirt, why are you using it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's there's so many arguments to go with this.
Like I said, hey, the no-till thing works. If I had a no-till drill, there may be times where I would use the actual no-till drill, but as far as like the rolling goes and the crimping goes, it's just a trend, man, that whatever reason, it's a trend that people are jumping on, and I honestly think it will fade out as time goes on. Um, that's just my opinion. Do you think it'll last forever or fade
Ah,
out?
I don't think it'll fade away because there's always someone out there with a different opinion.
Hmm.
Not only that, but once they invest in the money in one of them suckers, they're gonna use it, I bet.
Oh, crimper, yeah.
You know.
I'm just talking about rolling.
Well, you were saying about the no-till drill thing.
Oh yeah,
I,
well yeah,
I think the rolling crimping thing will probably go by the wayside, but the no-till drill I think is here to stay for sure.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's
I
big
don't know.
around here. We don't have very much ag left in my area, but what we have left farmer wise, everything's no-till. They do not mold board plow. They do not disc. They do not do any of that anymore. They go in like in the spring of the year. What he does is as soon as it gets warm enough to spray, he sprays and kills. And then he comes right back in with a drill, a grain drill, and he puts in oats and he lets the oats mature, and then the next thing you know, he drills whatever his rotation is for that year. It's either corn or beans. So he has a cover crop on, almost all year. And
I got a story about that.
so
He
he, I
did.
mean, he's smart. He keeps his soil, keeps something growing all the time. That is smart.
Yes.
But
Uh,
everything's no till.
you reminded me of something.
Okay, go ahead.
Last year when I got the new farm,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
there's 20 acres of tillable ground. Well, I had to meet the farmer that farmed it because I had to essentially rent or lease a piece of the ground so I could plant my food plots. Okay. I asked him, I said, how are you planting the beans and corn? Are you doing no till and all? He's like, oh yeah, 100% no till. I said, okay. He's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to diss the ground. He's like, oh, that's terrible. You lose all your topsoil and all this other stuff. I said, okay. I said, that's fine. That's what I'm going to do. He's like, okay, right. So we go back to the farm and I'm looking at the fields. I'm looking at his soil that he plants these corn and soybeans in. Dude, it was the worst soil I've ever seen in my life. All the soil, right, was dry. And you ever seen the soil where it gets dry and you get a hard pan on top and the soil like starts to crack?
Right.
That's what his soil looked like, right? I go and I'm walking around. It was super windy that day. His fields, okay, all I saw was dirt blowing off the top of the soil because he didn't use cover crops.
Right.
There was zero cover crop holding the soil there. And the whole idea of this no-till stuff is, oh, you're destroying the topsoil. And like you said, you get a windy day and you're blowing all the topsoil
Yeah.
over. Well, here it is, a no-till field where all they're doing is no-till for 7 years. He said the soil's blowing everywhere. It's dry, cracked, and just eroded everywhere because he did not use um, cover crops.
Right.
Well, I was there a couple weeks ago. There's my food plot with the brassicas and the clover in it holding itself together, looks gorgeous, and it's holding moisture. And his fields are out there dry as a bone, cracked and everything.
Huh.
So explain that.
Well,
My blood, my
I mean,
my face is red. My blood pressure's up.
he's getting heated. Oh my. Yeah, I mean, it's people make it so much harder, than it needs to be.
Very much so. Like I said, the video this podcast is not to it's not to bash anybody. It's just throwing out the idea of, like I talked about in my video, is going back to the basics and realizing that a food plot is not science. You need soil to seed contact, however it is of your way of getting that is the way to plant. And it's so easy to, like, you get bare soil, you get a seed on it, it rains, it grows. Like, I can't explain it any other way.
This goes back to biblical times.
Yeah.
I mean, they they plowed and planted and prayed for rain.
Hmm.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I just watched the weather forecast,
Right. Yeah. I
and
mean,
make sure I got some moisture in the forecast, and
right.
I
Well,
get to it.
we're all about the green manure, turning that back into the soil,
Sure.
because that green manure decomposes, turns back into soil and everything eventually, and those decaying material also, dries and rots in the soil, and you're leaving microorganisms behind that, and as you plant into that, kind of thatch that you have turned into the soil, it's also holding that soil together. It's holding moisture. It's, covering the seeds up a little bit, and it just grows. Like,
Right.
that's it, guys. Like, if you want to have a good food plot, I'm not telling you to do it any specific way. Do whatever way you think is best. Learn as you go. Learn from your mistakes, I guess, and eventually, I guess you'll figure out your own method of doing it.
Hmm.
Really.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like I said, I keep it simple.
Yeah,
When you start to complicate it, it gets weird.
it does.
And then,
It
like I
gets
said,
weird.
well, and then, like I said, watching the forecast, trying to get rain in there. Some of my videos when I'm planning, I get caught in the rain all the time.
I know. Every one you get caught in the rain.
Yeah, I get caught in a rainstorm, but I'm timing it just right. I gotta have you.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta have some soil moisture in the
Right.
soil,
Hmm.
and then you need the rain on top. So I
Yeah.
I get caught all the time, but I'm just as happy doing it.
Well, you also have that ability too, because you live
Yeah,
right
I
there.
live right here, and
Yeah.
I plant right here.
Yeah.
So
I try to do that as well, and I've been caught at the farm a couple times in the rain, but
what's
um,
that stuff you put on yours? You said it's called water.
water.
Yeah,
Oh,
water.
WOOTER.
Oh, that special stuff.
That's what I use.
Oh, that's why your plots grow so green. You use that
Yes, it's
water.
it's a special type of water.
Yeah, it's Maryland water.
Yes, it's not water, it's water.
Hunt your own state.
Yeah, hunt your own state.
Oh my. So let's shift gears, man. I think we beat that horse dead.
What? All right. So what do you want to shift? We're in first. You want to go to second or third?
Well, let's go in fifth in this cruise here
Second,
for the
third,
last couple
fourth,
minutes.
fifth. All right, we're in fifth.
For the last couple minutes. So
Fifth gear,
so
high speed.
we was at the Great American Outdoor Show, right? And you look at me and say, "Guess what?" And I'm like, "What now?" Because we were kidding around all day long.
I
And
don't
you
remember
said,
this.
"Yeah, you will." You said, "I just got a text from somebody, and guess what it was about?" And I'm like, "I don't know. What's it about?" And you said, "This is another guy asking about the stolen buck from you
Oh
when
yeah.
you was 14 years old."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So tell us.
Well, he had a podcast, and we haven't done it yet. We're gonna. I think he wants to bring it on next week or something. But um, to sum this up, is I was 14 years old. I just got into deer hunting, and behind my parents' house, my parents owned 2 acres of land, and I there was a lot of deer in that area. Nobody hunted it. It backed up to hundreds of acres of woods. Nobody hunted it, and I had saw this monster buck. It's right here. Um, um, but it's monster buck. And I told my dad. I said, Dad, I want to hunt. I was just getting into it. He said, okay. So we set up a ladder stand, and the neighbor, which I had permission to hunt on, Mr. Bickle, he's not around anymore, but he had a couple apple trees and persimmons. Okay. These deer used to pass the apple trees just to come to this persimmon tree. And I set up and I shot this buck with a junior pump action 20 gauge Remington. It ran off, got it, came back, and it was just this giant buck. So we ended up taking it to the taxidermist, and the taxidermist called about 2 weeks before Christmas and talked to my dad, and he explained the story of how somebody broke into his taxidermy shop and stole the antlers. My
Hmm.
dad's like, "What do you like? How does that happen?" The guy's like, "Oh, well, I usually lock all the antlers up at night, but this specific night I didn't lock them up, and it got stolen." So my parents filed a police report. We went on the outdoor sportsman show, which was a AM radio hunting show from Alan Ellis. He's actually still around. He comes on Saturday mornings. We went on there, explained the story. Nobody could help us. Like
Huh.
nothing. Nobody could help us.
No one knew nothing.
Nobody knew nothing. So 14 years go by. Okay, I'm 38 now. I shot it when I was 14. 14 years go by, and my new taxidermist was like, "Dude, you got to get on this website, post a story on this website about lost and found deer taxidermy." I said, "Okay."
Never
So
heard of it. You know,
no, never heard of it.
that's
So
crazy.
the website's gone now.
Lost and found taxidermy.
It was
Who would have thought?
it was taxidermynet.com.
Oh wow.
It's gone. I checked it, it's gone. So I went on there, posted this little brief story, had a picture of there when I was 14 years old, and 2 days later, I get this message from this kid. He was 14 years old. Funny, I was 14 years old, 14 years go by, and this kid's 14 years old
Huh.
that messaged me, and it was a 14-point buck.
Hmm.
Um,
Crazy.
so he's like, hey man, I saw this deer inside of my gun shop, local, right? I was like, whatever. Like, Next time you're there, take a picture of it, send it to me. Sure as heck, man. The next day, he snaps a picture, sends it to me. It's my deer hanging on the wall.
Mm.
Right. Call the police. I drive. He tells me where it's at. I'm on my way driving there. I call the police. Finally, get a hold of an officer that was a deer hunter. He met me there. We go inside, and he said, "Let me go in first and scope this out." He comes back out and said, "Your deer's in there. Let's go get it." So I went inside. My deer's right there on the wall and inside his gun shop. The officer talked to the owner, and the owner came up with some bogus story saying he has tenants of his, and when one of his tenants moved out, they left this deer behind.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, who's going to leave this deer behind? So the officer was like, "Okay, well, this is obviously this guy's deer. We can do this easy way or the hard way." Guy said, "Here you go." So after 14 years, I got my deer back, and the
Hmm.
hide was screwed up. I mean,
I was just gonna ask you that. Yeah. Did you got another cape for it?
it was disgusting. Yeah. So I took it to my new taxidermist, and I had the measurements of everything, or he had the measurements of it. So I ended up buying a hide. He remounted it and put it in, remounted it, got it back. I entered it into the Maryland Trophy Deer Contest. This was back in, I guess it would be 2012. I entered it, came in first place. Now,
Hmm.
after that, I let it rest. I didn't talk about it. I got it back, no big deal. About 3 months ago, I started a stupid TikTok account, and I said, you know what? I'm going to post a video about this situation and see what happens. It was like one of the first videos I put on there. It went almost viral. I mean, it got hundreds of thousands of views. People were talking about it everywhere.
Hmm.
And I got this message on Facebook about like a couple weeks later. This guy was like, "Hey man, my son saw this video on TikTok. My name's so and I can't remember his name. My name's so and so. Um, I'm the official. He was the official owner of the Maryland State Record Book. And back then, when I originally shot it, there was no book. There was no like record. Um, Now there's official book in Maryland, and he's like, "This deer is huge. I think it could be in the top 5 in Maryland. Do you still have the original score sheet?" I said, "Yes, I do." So I found the original score sheet, and it was scored back in 2012 by a guy named Fred Horn, which is now retired from the Maryland scoring system. So I sent him all the paperwork. He looked into it, and it's actually now officially number 4 in the state of Maryland.
Nice.
Um,
You're famous.
so I'm famous. So after that, um, this has continued, dude, for like 2 months now. I had, um, I think it was Michigan Farm Journal or something contacted me. I did an interview with them over the phone. They wrote this huge article about it.
Hmm.
Ever since they did that, Outdoor Life magazine
Hmm.
reached out to me. They did an article on it. Field and Stream. They posted all this on social. It's all on Facebook.
Wow.
You can read the whole article. Field and Stream reached out to me and did an article on it. Now, this guy at the show, like I showed you, he used to be uh, he used to work for the QDMA in Pennsylvania. I think he's a wildlife biologist. He heard about it. Now he wants me to go on his podcast
Hmm.
um, and talk about this, which I think we're going to do this week or next week. But
You're famous.
no, I'm not famous, but it's just a crazy. I mean, people are into this, like these journals and these
It's kind of a
magazines.
neat story though, because I mean, it got stolen and you got it back. That's pretty
I
cool.
know, and it was 30 minutes from my house. What's the
So it
real?
stayed in the area.
Well, that's where it was. Who knows
Yeah.
where else it's been?
Wow.
Who knows the real story? Who took it? Did the original taxidermy sell it? Because back then there was a big market for that. People were paying thousands of dollars for these antlers.
You gotta sell your story. Tell these people you want money.
I know. My theory is the original taxidermist is just a clown, and he ended up selling it.
Ooh.
Um, I just don't know. I mean, I don't know. But the buck scored 185 inches, my biggest buck to date. The next one down would be this one here, which scored 167. So everything has been downhill since shooting that. I'll probably never top it, which I don't really care, but
Yeah.
it's a cool story
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like it'll ever end.
Well, speaking of ending, it's time to wrap her up.
All right, so you're in fifth gear and we're in reverse now.
Yep.
We're
Let's
ending.
let's get out of here.
All right, guys. Thank you
Take
so
us
much
away.
for watching, or listening, watching again on Chris's channel. This is podcast 7,
Yes.
and we're producing these every week, every single Sunday at 5 p.m. Be sure to listen on YouTube, Spotify, um, Apple, Google Podcast. Leave comments, leave a review, support the podcast if you enjoy it, and we'll see you on number 8.
Yeah. Watch me.